Our first project this semester is going to use the skills from hand building. Hand building basically means all of the ways to shape clay that don't use mechanical assistance, like a wheel or a casting mold or a hydraulic press or any of those other methodologies. Hand building can use tools, but in a sense, it's the most basic form of handling clay. So we're going to introduce the three fundamental processes of hand building as we begin. The three essential processes of hand building are usually categorized as pinching, coiling, and slab building. All of these are essential skills, and the way I see it, they're not really separate categories. They blend into each other. And to do real clay work that follows your own vision, you're probably not going to stick with just one of them, but we're going to tackle them one at a time to start out. So pinching is modifying the shape of the clay by squeezing it. No tools, no additions, no add-ons, just working directly with the clay. So start off, just for practice, turning your clay into a nice, approximately tennis ball sized lump. Don't make it bigger than that for now, but don't make it too much smaller either. Working smaller is not easier. So, I'm going to take that lump of clay and let's have a little fun. Just stick your thumb right in the middle of it. Okay, I've got a clay lollipop here. Now, I'm going to squeeze it between my thumb and my outside fingers. As I squeeze the clay, no matter how I squeeze it, it's going to get thinner and wider. What we're going to practice right now is squeezing it to get a consistent thickness so it doesn't get all thin in one spot and some other spot is all thick. I'm going to challenge you to turn that lump of clay into a perfect hemisphere of approximately a 1/4 inch thick. So you can use both hands once that hole gets bigger. I'm squeezing with my thumbs on the inside, my fingers on the outside because I think that's easiest, but there's nothing wrong with doing it the other way, with your thumb on the outside if that feels good to you. But feel and get a sense for how thick that clay is. This is a skill that you're going to develop and cultivate throughout the semester, being able to tell how thick the clay is from feeling it. That's an essential skill, and it might not come naturally right at first, but it will come with practice. So feel for the thick areas and thin them out. If a place feels a little too thin, leave it alone. We'll talk about how to fix that later. But see if you can get that lump of clay into a perfect hemispherical shape. If you find it's getting thin on the rim or it's starting to crack a little bit, that might be because you're taking maybe longer than you need to do this. And the longer the clay sits out in the air, the drier it gets. The more you handle it, the more your hands pull moisture out and the drier it gets. So we're going to practice being moderately efficient at this. Don't worry too much about that for now, though. If it's starting to dry out, use a spray bottle, dampen your hands, and keep working. If you see a big old crack, oh no, there's a crack, smooth it over before it gets bad. Keep the rim of your clay kind of thick, maybe even thicker than the rest a little bit. That'll help keep that edge from drying out quicker than the rest. That edge is surrounded by more air than the middle is, after all. Now, let's have another challenge. Let's take this and make it into a cube. Boop. Let's give it corners. To do that, we're going to have to stretch out part of it. So to do that, we're going to have to move a little bit of clay around. You're going to slide your fingers and kind of push it. We don't want those corners to be thin spots and then have thick spots in the middle. Practice moving the clay around, pushing it to where you want it to be. Again, if you see little cracks developing, smooth them out and keep dampening your hands with your spray bottle or with a damp sponge. Having a damp sponge sitting nearby in a bowl or on a plate is a really handy thing for that. Try to make all the sides of your cube the same. Yeah, it's only got 5 sides. I'm not going to make you close it just yet. So, get a feel for that. Now, I'm going to turn it back into that hemisphere. I'm going to smush it up. Oh no, I ruined all that work. Guess what? We're going to do a lot of stuff that doesn't work out before you get the thing that really makes you proud. Don't be afraid to squish it up and try again. Clay can be reused forever. Even if it dries out, we can turn it back into usable clay, and we are going to reclaim every single piece of scrap that we make this semester. You'll learn how to do that. But for now, just go ahead and mash that up, add a little more water if you need to, so that it's still nice and plastic. Turn it back into a ball. Let's have another go at that hemisphere. You're probably thinking, oh, I made pinch pots in 3rd grade. I've done this. Well, we're going to be getting a lot more sophisticated than that after this lesson. But let's start here, because not everybody had art in 3rd grade. And I definitely think you can do a better job of it than you did when you were in 3rd grade. Pinching, feeling for the thick spots, feeling for the thin spots. Now we're going to take it up a level. You didn't do this in 3rd grade, I'm pretty sure. So I've got this hemisphere. Now I'm going to turn it into a closed sphere. This is going to get a little trickier. This is something 3rd graders aren't so good at. I'm going to take this rim, and instead of squeezing it to make it wider, I'm going to contract it in on itself. That squishing makes it wider and flatter. I call it the roadkill effect. That part's easy. Bringing it back in, it's a little tougher. To do that, I'm going to take this edge between my 2 hands, and I have about a ½ inch between my hands, and I'm going to hold it between my finger and thumb. And I'm going to push my 2 hands toward each other. Little shove. See how the clay thickened up and contracted a little bit there. And I'm going to move over a little further, do the same thing. I'm going to push it together. If your clay was really thin, it might fold over on itself instead of compressing. The thinner the clay is, the closer your hands have to be together and the tinier those little pushes have to be to avoid folding it. So if your clay got crazy thin and you shot right past that 1/4 inch mark, maybe start over and give yourself a reasonable thickness. Any bit between a 1/4 inch and a centimeter is a good thickness for this exercise. And if you're having trouble with it, work on the thick side. Get it up to around a centimeter or maybe even ½ inch, and get the feel of it there before you go back to working a little thinner. We're going to keep working. I'm going to push that edge together. Pushing my 2 hands together as I go. And you can see that the diameter is already closed up. I wasn't really quite careful enough in a few spots, and I got a fold right here. It scrunched in on itself instead of compressing. So I'm just going to take a finger and smush across it, blend it together. If it was a really deep fold, just smoothing the surface isn't going to help though, because that crack actually goes kind of deep, so I need to fix it kind of deep. I'm going to use a tool to make deep scritches across that fold to join it back together. Scritch, 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 scritch. I can use a tool, I can use my fingernail, any tool will do. This is a butter knife. You've got tools at school, and you can take them home to work if you want, but don't forget to bring them back to school. We need those. If you're working at home, I guarantee you can find all the tools you need just by looking around the house. You can do that with a pencil point, a dead ballpoint pen, a shish kebab skewer, all sorts of things, a sharp twig. Any tool we use in ceramics, it's not a special item. It's just something that happens to be the right shape for the purpose. So be alert, look around for those tools. But for this, you don't need many more than that. Once you've rejoined the clay across that little mark, that little fold, just keep going. Try to keep that consistent thickness. If the edge is starting to dry out, and even if you join it, it keeps cracking, it might be better to just slice that off for now. Don't throw it away, though. We're going to save that. I'm going to put it in a bin, and we're going to use it later. Stay tuned. Now, you can see that this is getting smaller, and I can't get 4 fingers in there anymore. So maybe I have 1 finger on the inside, but I'm still trying for that compression as it works its way around, making that hole smaller and smaller and smaller, not letting it get thinner. When I hold this clay, I'm not squeezing it this way. I'm only squeezing it this way. I'm only holding it firmly enough that my hands don't slip around on it. I'm grasping it just to have a grip and then pushing the clay inward toward itself. So if you feel your clay getting thinner as you do this, practice a little more on not gripping it too tightly or squeezing this way, but only squeezing this way. So as this is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, I'm going to keep compressing it until that hole is just the size of my finger. This might take a little practice, but this is a skill you're going to need all semester. Learning this will even affect how good you are on the wheel later on. If you can get the hang of this, the wheel will actually be easier for you. So, look at it, it's getting close. And I'm going to push in, see it's got a little bit of a lip to it there. I'm going to push that in toward itself until it closes up completely. Now I've got a balloon made out of clay. Your first assignment in this class is called the Animal, Vegetable, Mineral assignment. That's because you're going to be making one of each. We're not going to be literal representation here. This is a skills development assignment. So feel free to be interpretive and abstract about it, but show me that you're learning these fundamental skills. For this enclosed volume of clay, you're going to turn this into a vegetable or fruit. Turn it into a tomato or an orange or an apple. Now that you know what the assignment is, you'll probably want to start this over and aim at something that's maybe the right size or shape, but it doesn't have to be perfect. But I do want you to spend a little bit of time on neatening it up. Get it smooth, get it consistent. Run your fingers across it. Get those lumps smushed down, get any creases joined together. It'll all be good. If you get ambitious and you decide you want to add a leaf, let's come back to that. That'll be another lesson later on, how to add things. Right now, I want you to just work with the shape that you can make by pinching from a single lump. Show me what you can do with that. Getting the best score on this aspect of the project is going to depend on getting a good even thickness and good control over your shape. If it's got a funny lump sticking out somewhere, don't leave it like that. Fix it. If it's too thick, go back and pinch those thick spots out before you close your shape up. If you've got creases, smooth them out. Now, this has an enclosed air volume inside it now, which is kind of handy because it's supporting the inside of this with pressurized air. It's not going to collapse on itself if I'm shaping it and squishing it. I think I've decided to make a pair. Let's see, there's the bottom of my pear. I'll give it that little flower at the bottom. Maybe I'll even pinch out a little clay from the top and give it a stem. So, make me a fruit or a vegetable. Make it something that's in the 3 to 5 inch size. Please make it something fairly bulbous. You can make a potato or a mango or a green pepper or an apple or an orange or anything you want. But let's not go with bananas or carrots. They're so long and skinny, it's kind of a whole different skill set. And don't give me a grape. That's just a cop-out. Unless you want to make it a grape that's, 4 inches around. Now that you've finished your vegetable, there's one last thing you need to do before you let it dry. This is a trapped air volume, and our clay is going to shrink. Now, it's a complete myth that air makes clay explode, but pressurized air can make it crack, and we don't want that to happen either. So, before it starts to get past leather hard, take your needle tool and poke a hole in it someplace. That's plenty big. It doesn't need to be a bigger hole than that. And once you've done that, you can let it stiffen up, and once it's completely dry, we can fire it.